Hi, my name is Tom Riordan from SugarFree, and welcome to the Cookieless Present. Today, I'm excited to be sitting with John Baronello, Vice President of Digital Transformation at Merkle Cardinal Path. John previously was Director of Marketing Analytics at Allstate, as well as Director of Marketing and Customer Analytics at Walgreens. John, before we get started, would you mind telling the audience a little bit more about what you do in your current role at Merkle Cardinal Path?
Sure thing. Thanks, Tom. Thanks for inviting me here today. I look forward to this conversation. As you mentioned, I am the Vice President of Digital Transformation at Merkle Cardinal Path. Merkle Cardinal Path is a consultancy. It's part of Merkle, where we are we have a focus on data and analytics, technology, and consulting practices. Work really closely with many technology, ad tech, martech platforms, and specifically what we focus on a lot is our partnership with Google and going really deep into the Google stack. But we work with many of the other partners as well. And what my practice is for that group is really helping organizations map out everything that's happening today and what that implication is going to be for them in the future as we all are navigating what's going on right now.
Awesome. Thank you, John. And super appreciate you making time to chat with us. I think leading digital transformation, you're a perfect person to cover some of the topics that our audience is interested in about. So for our chat today, we're going to cover a few topics related to advertising in today's changing digital identity landscape. Our goal is simply to share with our audience some honest thoughts about topics that many of them are dealing with themselves.
That sounds great.
Excellent. Thanks. So to start, let's talk from a human angle and talk about personal data privacy. As a consumer, are you the type of person who's happy to exchange data with brands for marketing purposes? Or are you someone who's more defensive over your personal information? Kind of taking a step back from your day job for a minute.
Totally, yeah. It's interesting. I love this question because I think my preference towards it has changed over time. I think earlier on in my career, when I was really engaged in focusing on how ad tech works specifically, I was all in. I wanted to see if marketers could really do well with the data I was providing for them, just thinking about what they would do with this information I was giving, any behavioral signals or any of my personal information and whatnot. As time's gone on, though, I think I've got a little more cautious with that, and I'm a little more selective in when I'm giving that information up. And I think it's just because, number one, I have a better appreciation and understanding of what's going on, like how my data could be utilized, and I want to be purposeful when I'm giving that information away, and also I have 3 kids as well, and I'm trying to get them to understand those trade-offs too. Like, when's the right time to do this, when's not the right time to do this. But I will say I am certainly a sucker for a really well-placed Instagram ad. I think some of those organizations know me really, really well. I get really interested in some of those items, but usually everything else, I'm kind of cautious right now about what I do, what I give away versus what I don't.
Sure. So Instagram being one of the places you feel the flow of information or the flow of your data is worth the value exchange for what you get back from advertisers. What are some of the other indicators you look for? You mentioned there's some brands you might be happy to share your data with, or some instances. So one might be the platform that you're using. What are other times where you feel like it might be appropriate?
I think it's appropriate, like if it's a brand or if you're bought in on the brand and you're brought in on the experience, and you're going to move forward with this. I think what I get a little caught off by is, as a consumer, I get caught off by when brands are just about when they're signaling that they just want to capture your data, because I know why they just want to capture your data first, versus give me a moment to understand what the product offering is going to be and what I'm getting myself into before I give all my info. I think sometimes that experience is a little backwards. I think I'd be more likely to give that info if I'll say evaluate a new online service or a platform or whatever the case is, and I want to understand what the pricing tiers are, what the value is going to be for those services. I want to experience that first before I give all the information away.
Right. Sure.
So, but unless it's something I'm pretty confident on that it makes sense, we're going to move forward with, and in that regard, then generally the loose. But it's interesting. I think over the time I've gotten a little bit more conservative with just how just how I how open I am with my own personal information.
Right, sure. But if the company asking for information is clear and purposeful with how they might use it, you understand that you think that it's worth the exchange. And when you're coaching you mentioned your kids on how and your family on how to think about giving away their information. Same thing. You're probably just kind of teaching them situationally. There might be times where this payoff is worth it, and other times you need to be more defensive. Does that sound right?
Yeah, like for instance, my daughter wants to download all these apps all the time, and I'm the one looking at all the privacy, like all the T's and C's, and going, okay, this sounds okay, or no, we're not going to do this one,
Right?
Because I know I know what they're trying to accomplish here. No, forget it. Yeah, so it's funny, given the fact where I am, my understanding of the ecosystem, how all this works. I try to do good by that with my family and myself, but it's funny when I start to do that because my family's like, "Come on, Dad, let's just."
You're the specialist for reading the terms.
Yeah. No one ever wants to hear about what I talk about at the dinner table,
right?
Because it might mean they're not going to get the app. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right. No, that's great. All right. So moving beyond the dinner table and more into your day job, then let's talk about any short-term impact that you've seen at Merkle Cardinal Path to the changes in the digital identity landscape. You think of third-party cookie loss, mobile ID loss, are the products that you sell or services that you bring to market at MCP that have been impacted or have changed as a result of what we've seen?
Yeah, so that's specifically the work that my group does is help organizations understand which one of the platforms that they're using today are going to be impacted or are currently impacted or going to be impacted, number one. And then number two, laying out all the different options that we may or may not have together to progress through the evolution they're going to need to go through. So the topic about data deprecation, privacy, identity, activation, targeting, and all the fun subcomponents that go into that is just that's our bread and butter day to day in the trenches, working with clients to figure all that out. And it's part of it is the technology aspects. The other part of it is the disciplines, the measurement, how you need to think about measurement, how you need to think about how to position these changes coming at us as where are the opportunities for us to make advances moving forward, for the clients to make opportunities moving forward, versus where, okay, we need to rethink everything we're doing now, because if we keep operating like this, we're going to be probably in a more, at a higher risk position as this continues to progress over the next year or so.
Right. Okay. So the story is still unfolding. Your team provides an ongoing service of helping advertisers continue to navigate this. A few of the pieces you mentioned, targeting and measurement, does either pop more than another from an advertising perspective as places where you've seen big changes to what you do?
So we certainly have, we ensure that we bring both of those topics along for the ride, because they're going to have to work together.
Sure.
And so they'll break it down a little bit, bring it down just one step further, thinking about what addressable targeting looks like in 2 years from now, would look a lot different from what a normal media mix would be for an advertiser today. There'll be more of a first party data activation, more utilizing data clean rooms, more getting very explicit into the walled gardens in terms of how you're activating there differently than you're doing today. And so as that all progresses and moves forward, we're also at the same time going, all right, this is how, that signal loss that you're going to have is going to be present everywhere. So how are we going to adapt to measurement and insights along the way? So as you're making these changes and you're testing these platforms and you're figuring out what the new norm is going to be, what your new operating model is going to be, you have confidence that it's working appropriately. So I think that to just attack one versus the other is a disservice. I think that really there's a lot that's happening here that is specific, that both of those topics have to progress at the same time.
Makes total sense. And MCP is a big Google shop. You mentioned the walled gardens. Do you find a lot of advertisers able to accomplish much of their targeting measurement within that Google ecosystem, or are you finding that you're augmenting that with other pieces of technology, or how do you kind of see the walled gardens and the rest of the internet coexisting?
Yeah, I think so. Certainly, there's always a lot of, every client we work with is a little different in terms of what vertical they're in and how they have to, do they have a lot of data to work with, or not? So I see a lot of differentiation there in terms of the go-to-market tactics. I feel like there's a ton, specifically for like the Google pipeline, like what they're building out and what it looks like it's going to turn into specifically when we move from these proposals and betas into actual working products. It looks pretty interesting. It looks like there's going to be a lot that we could do differently within the Google stack. Our brands can think about how to leverage the Google stack a little differently. That's going to achieve a lot what they want to achieve. But at the same time, I'm also seeing, okay, there's still avenues and pockets of other ways of activating outside of say Google or Facebook or any of the other social media platforms, where there really is going to be some great opportunities for advertiser to publisher direct type of activations and things. I think it's really important for brands to just think about there's not going to be one solution that's going to overtake the other ones. I think it's going to be a lot like how the world is today. It's just there's going to be more the specific avenues are going to look a little differently. And by that, what I mean is there's not going to, if you're working with 5 or 6 different partners today or solutions, you're probably going to be working with that many in the future. They're just going to be operating differently, and there could be some different ones. So yeah, I think there's still a lot of avenue here for having multiple partners in the mix.
That makes total sense. And thinking about that long-term strategy, is there, if you had to guess and pick one piece today that you think will be most similar 5-10 years from now? Like, of course, there's going to be a lot of stuff changing. There's going to be new opportunities for advertisers to target and measure. What do you think won't change, though? What do you think will be most similar in the future? Is there a tactic you deploy today where you tell your advertisers, you can bet the farm on this because we'll be doing this for a while?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting angle on it. I think the contextual, I feel will end up being, the value that brings today will be the value that it brings tomorrow. And getting really good at understanding how to optimize a contextual targeting plan is going to be, I think, a key aspect of the playbook. With all the aspects in terms of connected television and where identity can be, or where organizations' first-party data can be utilized to make connections across the different platforms at that first-party data level, assuming that there's a cookieless connection between that and publisher. I think anything that brands are doing with that today, I think that's going to be another prominent aspect to the future for sure. And then also I think getting really smart around where we should be placing media from a geography perspective, or if any way that you can any way that we can still identify where high value prospects are in that whole in that evaluation. Those principles are going to still, I think, are still going to absolutely maintain moving forward too. It just the methods of execution are going to be different, but the concepts are going to be kind of the same.
It makes sense. And the concepts you're talking about are some fundamental concepts, right? That smart advertisers have been on top of for years. Owning your customer data, making the most use out of it as you can, and then managing context and geography is a decades-old practice that, like you mentioned, is right now getting kind of some fresh life breathed into it. It feels like.
Yeah. It's I think the foundational figuring out how the basics of just understanding how your data, how your media is affecting customer behavior, and having that to be like more of a focus of the signal of performance is going to be a truth set moving forward. I think in the past we've been everyone, we're so reliant on what the ad tech platforms are telling us what's happening and the truth that they're giving us. I think what's going to happen now, you need to have a really good understanding of how your media is changing your customer base, and have that customer base be the signal more so. And I think that's going to, everything old is new again type of thinking. I think we're going to find that there's some old school fundamentals that will be our guiding light.
Sure, I love that. Related to your dynamic as a consultancy working with advertisers, do you find a lot of your customers are coming to MCP looking for you to lead the conversation around this? Do you see that as kind of the role of agencies right now broadly, or do you find yourself pulling in a lot of tech partners? Do you find yourself making asks of your advertiser clients for them to take a bigger role? How do you kind of see the leadership role of the agency relative to your tech partners and your advertiser clients?
Yeah, so I think it's been a mix. I think we're still spending a lot of time for as many 3-year roadmaps that we are delivering for clients here's step 1, here's step 2, here's step 3, and this is how you got to think about all the interconnected pieces and get moving on those roadmaps. We're doing just as much education and awareness of why you need to have a roadmap. So I think this means, I think advertisers are, not everyone's on the same page with understanding what are the business implications that I need to be prioritizing in this topic right now. Because I think there for as many of, we all talk about like the doomsday cookies going away and everything's going to crash. Really, a lot of these fundamentals that we're going through, that we're talking about in terms of strategies, are great new ways to drive business and value for the organization because it's built on some stronger fundamentals. So I think there's to answer your question, what's, when we get brought in, what's going on, we're doing a lot of education, we're doing a lot of the level setting across the board. I think agencies, just by my, what we do, the plans and the strategies we can deliver are only as good as the client being able to then rally around and take this on and own it and move it forward too. So I think agencies have a role here of maybe laying out, this is everything you're going to have to be concerned with, and we can help you all those, with all those steps. But the clients, the advertisers, or publishers in some regards, they have to be completely bought in, and they have to be dedicated to that change too. Because otherwise, I think, like when that happens, I've seen some really, really great outcomes. When there's imbalance there's slower progress, slower momentum.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So there needs to be a partnership between all the partners involved. Mm-hmm. I love the point you made a minute ago about the way that changes in the ID landscape have been a forcing mechanism to just get people to talk about their advertising fundamentals and do things that are fundamentally good for their business, regardless of if and when Chrome finally, puts the final nail in the cookie coffin. I think it's a great point. All right, let's move to our final word. What is your read, John, on our preparedness as an industry as a whole? Attentiveness to the cookieless problem. It's gotten a lot of headlines in the trade publications, but as somebody whose job is to lead digital transformation, do you think the industry is making steady progress? Do you look at your peers and feel pleased and confident about the future of our industry? Or do you think we're on the verge of being caught flat-footed?
All the above, Tom. No, this time last year, I was a little more skeptical about how all the pieces are going to start to fit together, because there's, we'll talk about Google, coming off of Flock, talking about topics, talking about all these proposals of the privacy sandbox, all these ideas that need to, in some cases, magically come together. It was hard to look at that a year ago and go, okay, I can see this all come together. As we're getting a little closer and there's been more development with some of these new ideas, I'm starting to see a little more of a light at the tunnel. I go, okay, it at least gives me the ability to go from on the ground talking about high level theoreticals of what we can expect to happen to, okay, here's some tactical steps that we can see we can start digging into now to get ready for that. And I think that's been a little bit of a shift. So I think we're doing a little bit better as an industry of kind of getting closer. There's been a lot of recent focus on leveling up the education awareness around the role of data clean rooms, try maybe normalizing. I believe the IAB is going to be releasing some standards of what a clean room is and how they operate. And I think that would be great because that's going to help clients understand, oh, I get it. This is the role that's going to have in this scenario in our activation stack. So I see some pieces coming together here where getting a little bit more light at the end of the tunnel. But to use your example, you refer to this as the Cookieless now. It really is the Cookieless now. I mean, these are strategies that these are strategies that organizations can be taking advantage of in their transformation, like now. So versus waiting later on. So I think I'm a little more optimistic at this time than I was this time last year, and where things are at.
That's great news. That's encouraging.
I don't know. I'm curious of your point of view on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll start with what you said, is that pieces of it are true, right? I mean, some folks to my left seem flat-footed. Some folks to my right seem potentially 2 steps ahead. I'm certainly encouraged. A lot of the advertisers and agencies that I speak with have centers of excellence where they've dedicated folks to thought leadership and road mapping and architecture as it relates to dealing with changing digital ID landscape. So I feel like the right conversations are happening. Are the right technology pieces in place? Everything feels a little complicated to me right now. So some of the themes that you hit on about dialing in the basics before we go to very tech-driven solutions that are potentially hard for practitioners to understand, definitely been a focus of mine and a lot of the folks I've been speaking with.
I agree I really agree with that. I think that's a sign of, when you look at organizations, I think a key element of organizations that are 2 steps ahead are the ones that have also understood the connection to the fundamentals, because that enables them to be 2 steps ahead. The ones that haven't connected all the dots yet, I think they're, don't have the ability to be 2 steps ahead. They're still struggling how all this kind of fits together.
Maybe they jumped in the deep end.
Perhaps.
I see. All right. Well, I think that's a pretty good note to end on. I'll give you one more shot, John. Is there any advice you want to give to folks who tuned in, cookieless or otherwise? Keep asking questions. Get ready for a lot of experimentation, and focus on the areas in your organization where you need to dial up the levels of change, maybe internally, to enable yourself and your org to identify what is the right next step for us, and start putting that one foot in front of the other. Really well said. Thank you so much for joining me today, John. I super appreciate it. For our audiences, if you enjoyed this conversation, go ahead and click the subscriber bell on my profile to get notified upon future posts. And if you want to learn about the fastest way to get the benefits of ditching cookies in your ad targeting, drop me a DM or head to sugarfreeadvertising.com. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.